Joining us now on Blitz is Commerce head baseball coach Steve Cotrell. Coach, thank you so much for your time, first of all.
Oh, no problem. Glad to have it.
Now, Coach, I know this is the day after a heartbreaking loss for you guys in Game 3 of your epic series that you had against ECI. Walk us through that epic Game 3 and the series in general.
Well, the series in general was hard fought on both sides. I think we can always look back and look at opportunities here and there where the outcome's different. But that's why baseball is so much different than a lot of the other sports because it's so detailed. But I thought our kids played hard. They didn't want it to end. And, that's like I told them, I was proud of them. Even though the scoreboard didn't reflect what we wanted to at the end of the day yesterday, I felt like we outplayed them. It just didn't come out on the right side of things.
Yeah. And talk a little about Jacob Weltz. I mean, talk about picking a game to have the best game of your career. 2 solo shots. I believe one of those tied the game up. The other one put you guys ahead or something like that. But have you ever seen a performance quite like that one before?
It's been a while. And as far as being in, the big game where, you're facing elimination type deal, I don't know if I can remember coaching a kid doing that. Now I've had some kids do that throughout the season, where it wasn't at the same level, I guess intensity and caliber of game. But, Jacob, he works his tail off every day. He shows up every day to practice. This year I know offensively statistical, he hadn't had the year that he wanted to, but we've asked him to do a lot of things, hitting in the middle of the order. And when you don't have that hitter in the middle of the order to where, they're going to hit 450 and hit 10 home runs and other people around him, get pitches to hit, it makes it difficult, or I should say more difficult for those guys hitting 3, 4, and 5, just to drive in runs. And sometimes they put a little too much pressure on themselves.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I don't look at statistics as much as I do as how we have quality at bats and doing the little things like hit and run, putting the ball in play with 2 strikes, not striking out, that kind of stuff. And he's worked hard at it. He's fought some mechanical things this year at the plate, and just these last 2 weeks he seemed to kind of work out the quirks. And like I say, he had a great game, and he changed momentum, and it was in our favor. And then I called a pitch that I shouldn't have, and their kid hit a home run and tied it back up, but then he came back and hit another later in the game. So it just kind of shows you what kind of kid he is. He didn't let stuff get to him and just kept playing.
Absolutely. And you kind of said, you got the guys together afterwards and explained to them, it didn't quite go the way you wanted it to, but how is it as a coach to be able to console, especially your seniors that aren't going to be a part of the program anymore? How is that as a coach to deal with that when you're trying to get a grasp on it as well?
Well, Brian, I'll be honest with you. I've done this for 18 years, and I'm going to tell you, it's never easy, and it's never a simple, I guess, statement or line, or it don't matter which one and how it's been, what type of year. It's always difficult to do that. But, we only had 2 seniors, and, and they bought their time. One of them really just became an everyday starter this year, and even though, you look at the stat line, it wasn't great, but he played that leader part, and he just fit in, and this group just seemed to gel. I guess that was the most difficult part to swallow. The way we played the game, we didn't have no Division I guys out there, but all 18 of us, counting the 9 in the dugout, they got along, and there was no quirks, no clicks, or anything like that. And it's like I told them when we lost Game 2, we hadn't lost in a month. I mean, it was April the 6th, I think, was our last loss against Providence, which we were leading going in the 6th inning in that game, and we had won 8 in a row until that Game 2 loss. So for us to bounce back and play the way we did in Game 3 with our backs against the wall and to play that hard and like I said, you can always shoulda, coulda, woulda. Just even though things didn't go our way with calls and all that stuff, we still had our opportunities there in the 6th and 7th inning to take the lead. And when we brought Charlie back, I felt like if we had a 1-run lead, we were going to win the game.
Yeah. And speaking of Charlie, he is one of those 2 seniors you mentioned that will be moving on, which, I hate to hear. You hate losing a guy like that, but every coach has to deal with it at some point.
Right.
And of course, they're used to doing that. But what does Charlie Ludford really mean to this program?
I'll tell you what, he's different than any other ones I've ever coached, Brian, and I'll be honest with you. He never says more than 2 words in practice. He's always positive. He shows up every day. Every single one on the team loves him to death. And, that's the first person they all went to when the game was finally over, and which they didn't have to, but they were apologizing, saying, we're sorry, Charlie, we didn't get it done.
Yeah.
And and no matter how anybody evaluates anybody, when majority of the team, as soon as the game's over, is running to him, that kind of tells you what kind of person he is, even off the field.
Right.
And he actually helps me coach a little 11-year-old team, and I've had him over to babysit my own kids, and I have four little ones that I trust. So he's one of those that's got his head on right, and no matter what he chooses to do after high school, he's going to be successful.
Absolutely. A special kid and a Player of the Year candidate for us. And I know, coach like you, I can imagine, again, you're kind of letting those wounds heal a little bit, but I'm sure the wheels have been turning a little bit on already looking at the future. And man, you got a great team. You got guys like Nate Ray and Weltz that we mentioned, Colby Rogers, and some other guys as well. Key pieces coming back for you. You got to be excited, too, about the future of the program.
Well, we are. We weren't sure how this year, we graduated a group that had just been through the wars and battles last year, football field and on the baseball field. And, even though it ended the way it did last year, when you take some big, strong, tough kids and you start putting some younger kids in some roles that are main roles instead of just part-time or being a role player, you don't never know how kids are going to respond. You just don't, and right there, right before spring break, we had a bad lull to where, it was just things weren't going well, and we just had a little team meeting with the upperclassmen, and it was a positive meeting, and, all I asked was just show up ready to play every day and give me all you got. And shoot, from that day forward, we've been 100 miles an hour, even at practice, showing up and wanting to practice and do those type of things. And those young kids have bought in. I think it's really helped them this year go through some of the stuff we go through, because our region's tough. You can say it was not as tough as it has been, but when you got to go in and play guys like Providence, Hebron, I could go on and on.
Yeah.
2 and 3 days a week. I explain to our kids, we're battle tested. We've played. We're not going to see nothing that we haven't seen all year, and I think that helped us against ECI, because that's a tough environment to go into.
Mm-hmm.
It got a little rowdy. Had some big country kids, and I thought game 1 might have been the best game we played all year against a very good team and a good pitcher that I think might have been his first loss. I'm talking to some of the coaches. I think he's going to be Player of the Year in their region down there. I'm not sure. I don't know if they voted on it, but, and I'm proud of our guys. I hate the way it ended. I'm hoping we learn from it. And, in 2 weeks, we're going to start up summer ball, 2.5 weeks. And we're going to go back to work. We're going to find that next combination. I think we got to get a little deeper on the mound. And I think if we do that, I think next year we'll set ourselves up to make a good run at it.
Yeah, I've got no doubt. I see you guys back in the same spot next year and making a deeper run. And, Coach, congrats again on a 20-win season, 5 years in a row making it to the state playoffs, and really appreciate your time. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Brian.